just as a public announcement, any members of the public who wish to speak this evening, please refer to the agenda for the link, and those are the specific methodologies to connect into the meetings to provide comments. So IT can assist you in the endeavors to speak in the public forum and on the items this evening. Okay, and thank you very much. And I'm calling the meeting to order. And the next agenda item here is the Pledge of Allegiance. Chair will lead up the pledge at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. And the next agenda item here is roll call. Will Commission Secretary do the roll call, please?
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I'll now take attendance. Commissioner Ablaza, Commissioner Albana.
Here.
Vice Chair Alcorn.
Here.
Commissioner Belong.
Present.
Commissioner Chuan.
Here.
Chair Tao.
Here, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next agenda item is the conflict of interest declaration with the city attorney. Poll the commissioners, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I ask whether any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest on any of the items before you tonight.
None.
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 All right, you're hearing none. Let the record reflect none to that question.
Thank you. And next agenda item here is the election of chair and vice chair for the year of 2021. So city attorney, would you please conduct the election, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just start. With going over the procedure for this. So per the bylaws, we will be selecting a new chair and a vice chair. I'll go through the procedure, which is in conformance with the normal rules of order. So we'll begin first with the election of the chair and then the election of the vice chair. I believe how we customarily have done this is that one member can make a motion to nominate a specific member, and then if that gets a second, then we can have a vote on that item. However, you have an opportunity to consider different members as is permitted within our rules of order. So commissioners are allowed to make a motion and then alternate motions can be made. So we would start with an initial motion, and if that motion gets a second, then that person would be up for a vote. And then another commissioner can make an alternate motion, and then if that gets a second, then that person would be up, and so on down the line. So one thing to remember is if alternate motions are made, the last motion is voted on first. So for example, if 3 separate motions are made, then the third person who is nominated will be voted on first. And then if that person gets a majority vote, then that person will be chair, and then we don't consider the other 2 motions. So basically you're considering the votes. Please keep that in mind as you're considering the votes. And are there any questions? Okay, so if no additional questions or comments from the public, then we'll now open it up for motions for the selection of chair. Commissioner Chuan.
I'd like to make a motion to re-elect Chair Tao.
I'll second.
Okay. Any additional motions? Okay, seeing none, we could have a roll call on the motion.
Sorry about that. Where's my list? Commissioner Chuan.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Alcorn.
Aye.
Chair Tao.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, so via a 5-0 vote, Chair Tao has been reelected as chair. So we'll now proceed with the open up for motions for vice chair.
And I would like to nominate Commissioner Chuan for the vice chair position.
And I'm going to second.
Okay, any other motions?
I would like to nominate Tim Alcorn as vice chair.
Okay, any seconds for that? Okay, so it doesn't look like we have a second for that. So if there are no other motions, then we can proceed with a motion for Commissioner Chuan as vice chair.
Commissioner Chuan,
Aye.
Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Alcorn,
Aye.
and Chair Tao.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so via 5-0 vote, Commissioner Chuan has been elected as vice chair.
Well, thank you, City Attorney. And first of all, at this point, I'd like to thank the confidence and the support from my fellow commissioners for the continued service as chair to the City of Milpitas Planning Commission. We appreciate your confidence in my my service. And second of all, I'd like to sincerely thank Vice Chair Alcorn for his year service as a vice chair, for his dedicated service and expertise, which he brought to the commission. And we look forward to having you and all members of the commission to be continually engaged in the city's and the commissions going forward in the year 2021. And next is a welcome.
Hey, Chair,
Yes,
may I say something really quick?
absolutely.
So it was really amazing to serve as the vice chair. But one thing I wanted to say is that this position is not a position of power. It's a position of leadership and learning. And I was happy to second Vice Chair Chuan's motion, the motion for Vice Chair Chuan as vice chair, because I believe it's time to pass the torch. I've learned a lot over the past year, and this position, you get as much as you give. And so I just wanted to give that piece of advice. And I think that he is up for the task to handle this. And I want to pass the torch so that he can learn too. He's demonstrated a lot of thoroughness and skill over the past year that I've seen. So congrats and good job. Good luck.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Alcorn, and we highly appreciate your service as a vice chair to the commission. And Commissioner Chuan, first of all, allow me to go ahead to congratulate you on the vice chairmanship, and you have a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tao. And I just want to say thank you to all the members of the commission for electing me as the new vice chair. And I also particularly want to thank Commissioner Alcorn for his time as serving as the vice chair. He did an outstanding job, and I appreciate you passing the torch on.
And we appreciate everyone's participation. And given the discord that we've seen in the past year, within our nation, we really appreciate this collective process that we are all engaged. Thank you very much. Okay, and for the next agenda item is the approval of the agenda. And commissioners, any changes to the agenda? Seeing none. Staff, any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, there are no changes to the agenda tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, staff. And may I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for January 27th, 2021.
Thank you. And can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a Motion by Vice Chair Chuan and second by Commissioner Belong. And I'll go ahead and call out the votes by the commissioners. Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan,
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn,
Aye.
and Chair is aye as well. So my apologies, Vice Chair. I should change the title and the future calling. Thank you. And the next agenda item is the approval of minutes. For this evening, we have 3 minutes for the approval. And first of all, staff, are there any changes to the minutes that's before us this evening for the approval?
Hi, Chair. So I sent out the minutes and I received some comments back. And so I'm going to start with the minutes from our August 12th Planning Commission meeting. There was a grammatical error with the public forum. I noted 2 email comments were received when it was actually 3, and I've noted that. I'll make that change. The next comment next one I received another correction, another grammatical error. Time frame should be 2 words. And that's in our for item number 2, the master sign program. And lastly, for the August 12th minutes, in the vote for the recommendation, it should be 6 as opposed to 7 ayes as Commissioner Ablaza was absent.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Commissioners, any changes? So on the August 12th, 2020 meeting minutes, any changes to the minutes or corrections? Okay, seeing none, and may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Belong, and can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Albana. With motion by Commissioner Belong, second by Commissioner Albana. So I'll go ahead call out the vote. Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Chuan.
Aye.
Chair Tao's aye as well. So motion passes 6-0 for the August 12th, 2020 meeting minutes. And then for October 14th, staff, any changes to that?
So for the special meeting, I received the August 14th special meeting minutes. Let's see.
October 14th, is that?
Did I say August? I'm sorry, October 14th, our special meeting. I have, for the public, to close the public forum for the Chevron item, I put 6 ayes, it should have been 5 because Chair Tao had recused himself and Commissioner Ablaza was not present. And same goes for item number 2, the public parking lot. The motion to close the public forum should be ayes 5. Same reason Mr. Tao recused himself and there was Mr. Ablaza was absent. And that goes for the recommendation for the parking lot. Commissioner Tao recused himself and Commissioner Ablaza was absent. So the vote was 5 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Okay, we're through that portion. And so with these corrections here, my apologies. So with these corrections here, are the commissioners any changes to the October 14th special meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none. And can I have a motion, please? Vice Chair Chuan motion, and can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Vice Chair Chuan and a second by Commissioner Belong. And so I will go ahead call the commissioners for vote for your votes. Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chuan,
Aye.
Chair Tao's aye as well. So passes 5-0. And then the next one here is October 14th, the regular meeting. And the staff, any changes to that?
I have not received any corrections from any of the planning commissioners via email.
Thank you very much, Ms. Medina. And the commissioners, any changes to them? Okay, seeing none. And can the chair have a motion, please?
I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for October 14th meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Belong. A second, please.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Belong motion and Commissioner Albana on the second. And so I'll go ahead call out the vote. And Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn,
Aye.
Commissioner Vice Chair Chuan,
Aye.
and Chair Tao's aye as well. So it passes 5-0. And so we have completed the approval of all 3 meeting minutes. So the next section here, next agenda item here is announcements. So Chair has announcement here. Chair would like to congratulate Commissioner Chuan for his reappointment for a new term on the Planning Commission. And we look forward to 3 years of service to the city and community. Thank you. And that's all I have. And Commissioner's announcement. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Tao. Just want to, thank you for the kind words and looking forward to serving the city of Milpitas for another 3 years. That's all.
Well, we appreciate that volunteerism. Thank you. And planning director, any announcements, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I want to add my congratulations to both the chair and the new vice chair. We look forward to working with you over the next year. And of course, a big thank you to Commissioner Alcorn for his service as the vice chair over the past year. And I've enjoyed getting to know him a little bit better, and look forward to continue to work with you and the other commissioners over the coming year. As you can see from our screen, we do have 2 vacancies currently on the Planning Commission. We have the vacancy from Council Member Chua, who has moved on to the City Council, of course, and then Commissioner Blaza, I thought would be here tonight for his last meeting, but it is my understanding that new appointments will be made by the mayor and the council next week at their meeting, or sometime in February at least. So I believe it will be in 2 weeks. So we look forward to finding out who the new commissioners will be, and we'll welcome them in and provide them with the onboarding that they will need to work with this great group of people. And the work moves on. So thank you again, though, for all of your service, and we always look forward to seeing you at each of our meetings. That's all I have for tonight. Oh, I do have one other thing. Is next week at the council meeting, they will be having the council will have the second of 3 study sessions, or I call them in-depth discussions about the Metro Plan. And so I just want to make the commissioners aware of that, as well as the public, in case you want to tune in. The topic for next week's discussion will be on circulation, transportation, transit, and walking trails, that sort of thing. So parking. So last 2 weeks ago, we spoke with the council in the first study session on land use and density intensity. Had a very good presentation, a very good discussion with the council. Again, we'll talk circulation, and then the third meeting is scheduled for March 3rd, and we will be talking about open space and parks and fees. So, and then that will wrap up our discussions about the planning framework for the Metro Plan, and the consultants and staff will then take the direction that we've received from the public through an extensive online survey and open house, and direction from the council, and begin writing up the plan itself and preparing the CEQA document. So, right on the heels of tonight's general plan, then we'll move into Metro Plan, and we have other large projects waiting in the wings. So we look forward to keeping everyone busy over the next year as we work together. Thank you.
Okay, Director Thomas, I'll do a 1-second pause just in case you have another item to add on to the announcement. Seeing none, thank you. And the next agenda item is a public forum, and those interested are invited to address the Planning Commission on any subject not on tonight's agenda, orally via Zoom webinar, and instructions above in tonight's agenda. Speakers may provide their name and the city of residence for the recording secretary's record. And comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the Planning Commission, and no action can be taken. Planning Commission may instruct the staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. So, Ms. Medina, are there any public comments in the waiting?
Hi, Chair. We have one comment waiting from Mr. John Dahl.
Please. And if the staff will put a clock on it, thank you. Mr.
Okay,
Dahl?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Well, I realize now that this is the public forum. My interest is in the general plan update and the comments that we had previously submitted to that. So I just want to contribute to that discussion when we have it. I'm not sure this is the appropriate moment for that.
Not the appropriate moment, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in the next agenda item, and
Okay.
we'll talk to you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Medina, I assume there's no other public comments, right?
I don't see anybody else. Can you hear me? Yeah, I don't see anybody else in the queue.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next agenda section is the public hearing. We have one public hearing item this evening. It's the Milpitas 2040 general plan and the final environmental impact report. And given the fact that we may have a large number of speakers this evening, Chair would like to limit the speaking time for each presentation to 2 minutes, and Chair may, at his discretion, may be able to add on to the time or permit attendees or the speaker some additional time. So with that said, I'm going to turn the Zoom meeting over to Planning Director Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Tao, and thank you to the commissioners, and also a big thank you to the members of the public who are joining us tonight. We're a staff and consultant team that's been working on the general plan. We're very pleased to be with you tonight to present the general plan and its associated environmental impact report, or EIR, under CEQA, for a recommendation to the City Council. We've been looking forward to this day for a very long time. As you are all aware, the general plan is probably is one of the most important policy documents for the city, and it's a very important role that the Planning Commission plays in reviewing the document and recommending it to the council, but also it is your purview to implement, help the community implement that general plan. And almost, well, every application for new development that we bring forward to you will always have a section on there for consistency with the general plan. And then each year we also have other items like the capital improvement program. The city comes forward to you for a finding of consistency with the general plan. So tonight we're laying the foundation, preparing the foundation, making recommendation to the council to set that foundation for future development of the city. And just as noted in the staff report, the general plan establishes a vision for the future growth and development of the community. It's really sometimes it's called the blueprint or the constitution for the city, and it provides a policy framework for decision making on all issues citywide. And as you look through the general plan, you'll see the why. And tonight we're going to cover the breadth of the issues that are addressed in the general plan. So without further delay, and I already talked too much, I'm going to turn the time over to Jessica, our planning manager. She's also been the project manager for this project through thick and thin over the past 4 years, and she can make a few comments and then introduce our consultant team, and we'll go from there. So Jessica, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Ned. Good evening, Chair Tao, Vice Chair Chuan. Congratulations on your appointments. Thank you to the remainder of the planning commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. For the community who is able to join us, and if you're not actually participating, watching our presentation, we are pleased to deliver the draft general plan and the final EIR for your review and your consideration tonight. I am not going to belabor this point. I want to jump right in and introduce our consultants from De Novo Planning Group. We have Ben Ritchie here. He's a principal with De Novo. We also have William Crenshaw. He's a senior planner with De Novo. And I just would like to first acknowledge all of their efforts. As I mentioned before this project started, was essentially initiated in 2016. That was prior to my coming on. When I joined the city in 2017, we were able to get underway, and we've been very, very busy for several years. This has been, like I said, I feel like I'm at the prom tonight. It's an exciting moment. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand this off to Ben. He will be making a presentation, and then we will allow time for the Planning Commission to ask any questions that you may have, any clarifying questions. We also have time for the public to submit comments, and we are happy to jump in at any point if there's a question, anything that we can help to resolve as a point of clarification throughout that point. So Chair Tao, please let us know how we can be of service, and I will turn it over to Ben.
Can I just add really quickly, we also have our several member staff from other departments that are here tonight to help answer questions. So as you can see on the screen, oh yeah, we have our Economic Development Director, Alex Andrade, our Transportation Engineer, Steve Chan, and Albert Zamora and Jaime Garcia from Fire Safety Department. And so they're also here to answer any questions if needed. So without any further ado, Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ned and Jessica. Chair, commissioners, good evening, everybody. This is a good night. This is the home stretch. So as they mentioned, we have been hard at work at this for several years, and we finally got the right staff team in place. We got some council motivation behind this. We got some great public participation, and I do this for a living. I get the pleasure and the benefit of working with communities, cities, and counties throughout California. It has been a tremendous pleasure working with the community and the leadership and the staff at the city of Milpitas. And as someone who writes these all day, every day, all over the state of California, I'm very proud of the document we've been a part of putting together for Milpitas. So I will get right into it. I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll go ahead and get my screen share going here. And I'm going to walk you guys through. All right, everybody got my PowerPoint? Fantastic. All right, so the game plan for this evening, our overarching objective is to conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution number 21-001, recommending that the City Council certify the Milpitas 2040 General Plan Final EIR and adopt the Milpitas 2040 General Plan. So my game plan for this presentation is I'd like to walk you through the process to develop this general plan. Obviously, we've been at it for 4 years. There are a number of steps and stages that went into this. If only it were so easy as we show up, write the thing, hand it to you, and move on. But there is, for the betterment of the process, a lot of steps went into this. So I'll walk you through that. I'll walk you through what's actually in the general plan itself, including the land use map. There are a number of elements. It covers a very diverse, broad, and comprehensive range of topics. So for those of you who have not had the pleasure of reading it cover to cover yet, I'll walk you through what's in each of those elements. We'll talk about the environmental, the CEQA process that we've gone through, and also the opportunity for public review and comment on both the draft EIR and the general plan itself. And then we'll just move into discussions, questions, and whatever the commission chooses to bring up. So in terms of the general plan itself, so California state law requires that all cities and counties in California must have an adopted general plan. The general plan is intended to reflect the community's goals and priorities, and it often is called the city's constitution or blueprint. And it guides future land use decisions, planning decisions, infrastructure decisions, parks, public services, resource conservation. It is really a broad and comprehensive document. So while the state of California mandates that we have a general plan, they provide a tremendous amount of discretion to individual cities in terms of how your general plan is crafted and the types of policies you have. Obviously, if you think about the diverse mosaic of the many communities and cities throughout California, one size does not fit all. So the needs of Milpitas and the preferences and the values of this community are unique and they're important, and those are very much reflected in your general plan. So you have one now. The last comprehensive update to your general plan took place in 1994. You're well overdue. Usually these have a 20-year planning horizon, and communities usually look to update them every 15 years, maybe 20 years. You've had a couple periodic updates along the way, some targeted updates to land use and circulation, but your last comprehensive overhaul was in 1994. So the one we've crafted for you here that we're presenting this evening has a 20-year horizon looking out to approximately the year 2040. And we've done what I'll call a full overhaul to your existing general plan. But with that said, we didn't necessarily go in a dramatic new direction on a number of key goals and policies. So there were a number of objectives and goals and vision statements from your existing general plan that still hold true today. So those goals were carried forward through the lens of a full update and overhaul to modernize it, bring it into compliance with state law, and most importantly, make sure that we've checked back in with your community, your businesses, your leadership to make sure that this plan represents your current vision for the next 20 years. So a number of stages and steps have gone into our work program. We kicked this off by holding a series of public visioning workshops to help us identify community priorities. We then moved into our detailed analysis of your existing conditions. I always like to say it's very difficult to effectively plan for the future if you don't have a solid understanding of your starting point. The outreach and the existing conditions analysis led us to identify a number of key issues and opportunities that would be the focus of the update. And one of the key components of your general plan is your land use map. So we prepared a land use alternatives report, which was a very useful tool for your general plan advisory committee or your GPAC, the city council, staff, and the rest of the project team to make informed decisions about how we may or may not make changes to your land use map. We then worked very closely over a 2-year period with the GPAC to develop the goals, policies, and action items that are contained within the general plan. And the culmination of their work together was the draft that you have before you today. We have then gone forward and completed the necessary environmental impact report. These have gone out for public review and public comment. And now we find ourselves at essentially the final stage, which are adoption hearings, our public hearings to consider adoption and certification. So during each of these milestone steps, there were a number of supporting documents that were prepared. These are all available on the project website, which is milpitas.generalplan.org. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to visit that site and review some of the project materials. But we did a workshop summary report that detailed all the feedback we got during the initial outreach process, the existing conditions report that I mentioned. That existing conditions report is a beast. It's 400 plus pages. It's not exactly light reading. So we made what we call the Cliff Notes, the Reader's Digest summary version. So we put that into kind of graphic magazine form, makes it a little bit more digestible. Series of memos on issues and opportunities, the land use alternatives report that I mentioned. We worked very closely with the city council over a series of meetings to refine and fine tune the land use map. And that council preferred land use map is the map that is in the draft general plan before you today. Again, we developed the policy sets with the GPAC, the draft general plan document itself, which is before you today, and the 2 major steps of our CEQA compliance, which was the draft EIR and then the final EIR. And again, both of those are available on the website along with everything else on this slide. Public outreach and community participation has been a very important cornerstone of our effort throughout. So just a quick snapshot of some of the opportunities for the public participate in this process. They included, as I mentioned, the initial 3 visioning workshops when we kicked this off. We had a total of 13 GPAC meetings, all of which were open to the public and provided opportunities for public comment and participation during those meetings. We published a series of newsletters throughout key milestones throughout the process. Again, the general plan website has been a very key component of our outreach efforts and getting information to the public, especially during this past year where we haven't had the benefit of in-person meetings. Staff has been very diligent about sending out regular email updates. There's a contact us button on the website. Lots of people expressed interest in the general plan. So we had a growing list of email contacts. So at key milestones, Jessica would send out updates to everyone who requested information on that. So we really tried to make a concerted effort to not only give people an avenue to participate if they wanted to, but to prompt them and trigger them when milestones were upcoming, just to make sure that they were notified of upcoming opportunities. In December of last year, we held a virtual public workshop to go over the general plan, answer questions, and receive feedback. We typed up the summary notes from that meeting. They're included in your agenda packet. And here we find ourselves at the first of what will be a couple of public hearings. We'll go to the Planning Commission, then of course onto the City Council. And then of course there's opportunities for public input and comment tonight, and then subsequently at council hearings. All right, getting into the general plan itself. So the state of California has general plan guidelines, and state regulations mandate that there are 7 required elements that must be included in every general plan. So these mandatory elements include land use, circulation, conservation, safety, noise, open space, and housing. Housing is a bit of a unique animal. Housing elements are required to be certified by the state of California every 8 years. And so each region throughout California gets put on a series of housing cycles based on timing. So you currently have a certified housing element, and in the next 2 years or so, you'll need to do an update. I believe 2023 is going to be your deadline for certification of your next housing element. So we didn't crack that one open as part of this effort. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the city has a lot of discretion in terms of how your general plan comes together, so long as you're addressing the 7 mandatory elements. So for Milpitas, we've blended the topics of conservation and sustainability. And we've also addressed the topics of parks and recreation and trails as part of your open space element. We've also included a number of optional elements that address topics that are of local importance and are community priorities. These include community design, economic development, utilities and services, community health and wellness, and we also have an implementation chapter. So on the subsequent slides, I'll go through in a little bit more detail some of the topics that are addressed within each of these elements. You can think of elements as chapters, each one focused on a very specific and discrete set of topics. And each of your elements are made up of a series of goals, policies, and action items. So a goal is a broad statement of community desires, preferences, and the general plan's purpose. Policies are developed in support of each goal, which provide a little bit more specificity. And the policies are guides to decision makers, such as yourselves, with respect to development proposals, future growth, and how you allocate various resources within the community. And these are supported by a series of action items or implementation steps. And these are tangible, actionable items that the city can and will carry out in order to make sure that the general plan is properly implemented. So again, each element is comprised of a series of goals, policies, and actions addressing the topics relevant to that element itself. So I won't belabor these too much, but I just did want to provide a bit of an overview of the breadth and diversity and range of goals and topics that are addressed with each of the elements. So these, the text on the screen is a paraphrase of each of the goals. Some of the goals are full sentences or a couple sentences long. I didn't want to cram way too much text on the single slide. But in terms of the land use element, we have goals addressing having a good balance and mix of land uses. Goal focusing on special planning areas within the city. We address local and regional land use. We address the nexus between transportation and land use. A set of goals and policies specifically aimed at new development. A goal aimed at commercial centers and revitalization and economic health. And also a goal focused on job generation. And you'll notice as I go through each of these descriptive goals and each of the elements, the general plan is like a web. One element closely relates to the other. You can't talk effective transportation without talking about the land use patterns around your transit stations. You can't talk about effective economic development and job growth without having a right balanced mix of land uses. You can't attract high quality businesses without quality infrastructure and strong city services. So many of these topics, it's really a web. They're interrelated, they're complementary. And one thing that we've tried to do is make sure that this document is internally consistent and that the goals from one element support and complement the goals from another. So moving into our circulation element, we address complete streets, regional transportation, vehicle miles traveled. And as planning commissioners, this will be a topic you'll hear more and more about over the coming years. We talk about transportation practices, parking standards, and safe streets. Moving into community design, this is very complementary to land use. I've got a long list here, but we talk about community character, project design and excellence, protecting different districts, neighborhoods, and commercial and mixed use centers. We talk about trails and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and trail design. Talk about transitional land uses and infill development, corridors, pathways, streetscapes, and edges, hillside development and preservation, gateways, landmarks, and wayfinding, public spaces and public art, pedestrian and bicycle design, as well as sustainable design. Moving into economic development, some of the key goals we have here is strengthening the local economy, opportunities to ensure fiscal sustainability in city government and the provision of services, how to strengthen and target key opportunity areas within the city, focused economic development opportunities, and bolstering the community workforce and job opportunities and diversity. Our conservation and sustainability element focuses on climate action, trees and vegetation, biological and aquatic resources, cultural and historical resources, architectural resources, mineral resources, and air quality. Moving into utilities and community services, we address these from a general level, and then we focus on water, sewer or wastewater, stormwater and drainage, disposal of solid waste, electricity and natural gas, telecommunications, and then other key public services like schools, libraries, and other public facilities. Our safety element focuses on geologic and seismic hazards, flooding, emergency preparedness, emergency services, hazardous materials, and climate resiliency and adaptation. Obviously, climate change is a very key salient topic right now, and you'll notice in the general plan, we've really attacked it and approached it from two lenses. One lens through the conservation and sustainability element is how we lower and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and our carbon footprint. And through the other lens of the safety element, how do we respond and make sure we're a resilient community in terms of reacting and responding to the effects of climate change, such as increased heat, sea level rise, drought, things of that nature, which we've certainly been seeing more of in the past few years. We have the state required noise element, which talks about goals related to regulating excessive noise, both from mobile sources, such as roadway noise, train noise, things like that, and also stationary noise. So industrial operations, commercial activities, and other things not related to the transportation network. And we also have specific policies and goals related to transit-oriented centers, which have a bit different set of needs and circumstances than other parts of the community. And in the parks, recreation, and open space elements, last but not least, we address the park and trail system, recreational opportunities, and also our open spaces. So that was a quick, blindingly fast tour of a 250 some odd page document addressing a broad and comprehensive range of policies throughout the community. So again, I want to emphasize that the general plan was crafted to meet all of the requirements of state law. They're constantly changing, so you're up to speed and into compliance with the current set of state laws. They reflect the goals, values, and priorities of this community, and also the priorities and direction provided to us by your city council. So in addition to the elements listed above, or that we just went through, the other major component of your general plan is the land use map. And what the land use map does is it assigns a designation to each and every parcel within the city limits, as well as your sphere of influence. This designation determines what types of developments and what types of land uses may occur on any given parcel within the city, as well as the general density or intensity of the allowed development. The pages in the land use element, pages LU4 through LU9, it lists out a description of each of the land use designations that are on your map. And as I mentioned previously, the map was developed with extensive input and collaboration from both your GPAC and the City Council. And ultimately, we held a series of workshops with the City Council where we got the map refined to the point where they didn't formally adopt it, but we had 5 council members giving a thumbs up saying, yeah, this is where we want the map to be. All right, so here it is. I realize you're all looking at iPads or laptops, and this is a PowerPoint presentation, so we're just really not able to drill down into the level of detail, but your map is available as a fold-out in the hard copy general plan, and it's also, of course, in multiple places on the general plan website. Using it online as a PDF can be very helpful. You're able to zoom in, you're able to see it at a high resolution and really get a sense of what's on any given parcel. And so I want to walk you through a little bit of the process to get this map developed and kind of highlight some of the key areas of change and areas of non-change that came about through this process of developing your updated land use map. So we started out attacking or approaching this land use map through the lens of our big picture land use goals. And again, these were developed from community input, GPAC input, and council input, as well as observations from staff and some of our professional observations and recommendations. So our big picture goals that were our kind of guiding force for this land use map were protecting your existing established residential neighborhoods, looking for opportunities to spur job growth and economic development by making the city more competitive in attracting large-scale employers, tech industry, things of that nature, looking for ways to revitalize existing neighborhood commercial centers. And one of the tools we used was allowing for limited housing and also expanding some retail and office potential within these established commercial centers. Looking for ways that we could complement and support your recent and ongoing other planning efforts related to the Metro specific plan, and as Ned was just talking about, the Gateway Main Street specific plan, which is moving forward right now. We looked for opportunities to reduce existing and potential future land use conflicts by transitioning select areas of your city from more of an industrial manufacturing land use mix to more of a mix of residential and lower impact, lower nuisance generating land uses. We look for opportunities to optimize your land uses near the transit stations. And so it's not only the new BART, but other VTA facilities and resources within the community. And also making sure that we protect and strengthen the viability of the city's industrial lands. You have a very unique resource, that industrial manufacturing district in the heart of the city that provides a lot of jobs, provides a lot of tax revenue, provides a lot of opportunity for synergy with other local businesses. So we wanted to make sure that we protected that resource as an industrial base and a jobs base within the Milpitas community. So this led us to prepare the land use alternatives report. And again, I realize you can't read everything on the screen, but we came about this through, instead of saying, okay, we need to wipe the slate clean on land use, let's really focus our efforts on some targeted areas or opportunity areas. So throughout this process, we identified 14 key opportunity areas, and the land use alternatives report that we prepared provided some different suggestions or alternatives on how you may change the mix of land use in a given location within the city and what the implications would be. How might it increase traffic? How might it increase residential growth potential, job potential? How would it affect the bottom line fiscally for the city? So as we worked with the GPAC and the City Council, we weren't just changing colors on the map. We provided a supporting analysis to make informed decisions. And this was a very useful, indispensable tool for arriving at the map you have before you today. So if you look at this map here on the screen, this is the darker gray is the city limits of Milpitas. And the things with color. So we've got some thatching and cross hatching here in the middle. This is your existing transit area specific plan, which will be updated as the Metro specific plan. Nope, I got it backwards. This is your Main Street, Gateway Main Street specific plan. The names have changed constantly. It was Midtown forever, and we changed the name midway. This is your current transit area specific plan. which is transitioning into the metro specific plan. And as you can see, the majority of the city was left alone and untouched. The reason I highlight these two specific plan areas is your existing general plan, the land use map, is very busy. It assigns a designation to each and every parcel within these two specific plan areas. We feel it's much more useful and effective for those individual specific plans to be the document or the map that provides the guiding direction on how development and land use occurs within those areas. So as you'll notice on your updated land use map, we've simply designated those specific plan. That allows you to update the specific plans. It allows those documents to provide the mapping and land use guidance and development guidance for those areas. And it'll be much more useful for the commission, staff, future applicants to use those specific plans. So we've really streamlined your general plan in that sense. So looking outside of those two areas here in the middle, there's a very discrete number of parcels and a discrete amount of land area that's actually been subject to change. And those changes we've divided into 4 basic categories of change, which I will walk through quickly right now. So the first one we classified as industrial and business park intensification. So we're dealing with your industrial manufacturing area here. We're dealing with, so this is McCarthy running along here. So getting down in the southern area, it's been designated industrial park for years on your existing map. And up here, McCarthy Ranch has also been designated industrial park. We really didn't change the designations of up here and over in your manufacturing district. They have the same land use designations, but we've changed how intense the development is allowed to be within those land use designations. So for example, industrial park used to allow a floor area ratio of 0.5. We've increased that to 1.0. It brings you much closer to the industry standards. It's going to make more flexibility for the development and the jobs generating economic base of your community. And it's going to allow you to make higher, better use of that land without changing the overall intent. Down here south of 237 on both sides of McCarthy, we've changed the designation from industrial park to a new one, business park research and development. So the idea is it's going to try and be a betterance and a furtherance of the types of tech jobs and uses that you have down there now, but allowing for more intense development, higher office buildings, and more of the development typology that the tech industry strives for when they're looking for new space. The idea was to help make the city more regionally competitive in attracting major employers. The next theme that we looked at, and this really just occurs in 3 discrete areas, is neighborhood commercial center revitalization. So these are some existing neighborhood commercial centers, and really all we've done is increase the floor area ratio allowance to allow these to develop some more modern architecture, a little bit better use of the limited land area, maybe more of an emphasis on pedestrian and bike connectivity and less of an emphasis on automobiles. You know, we all know the kind of the 1960s strip mall model where it's just a sea of parking with low intensity buildings stretched along the back. The idea here is to free up the development standards to try and spur property owners to reinvest in their property by offering up a little bit more in terms of the development potential on their lands. But it's really not a change in land use. Along a similar theme, we were still striving for neighborhood commercial center revitalization, but these areas we determined it was appropriate to allow for a limited amounts of residential development in ancillary and in support of commercial or office as the primary use. So there's a hard cap on the amount of residential development. It's really meant to be more of a carrot to entice property owners to, again, revitalize the primary commercial use of their lands and incentivize them with some residential unit allocations that hopefully inject a little bit more life and livelihood into these commercial centers and make it potentially more profitable, therefore more enticing for property owners to reinvest in their properties and their communities. And last but not least, we have a couple of discrete areas that are transitioning from historic industrial and manufacturing land uses to more of a residential and mixed use type. So one example up here is California Circle. The residential development has been occurring there a little bit ad hoc and piecemeal over the last several years, as I'm sure the Planning Commission is aware. So this provides just a more cohesive, unified approach to how that future development ought to take place without completely losing some of the industrial lands up here. And then down here to the south is a really interesting, unique parcel that we've transitioned to business park research and development. It was previously manufacturing, and it's south of Montague down here. And we've also applied an economic incentive overlay zone, or an innovation district overlay zone, to provide some economic incentives for some really neat incubator spaces and high-tech workforce spaces that are within close distance to your new BART station. So that was just a quick 30,000-foot tour of the changes on your land use map. They were thoughtful, they were targeted, but I also wanted to emphasize it is not going to dramatically change the fabric of your city in so much that we haven't gone in an entirely new direction. You have a lot of really well-established quality residential neighborhoods. We've worked very hard to preserve and protect those, and we've tried to look for very targeted opportunities to make useful strategic improvements to achieve our big picture goals. And that led us to your current land use map and your general plan. All right, thanks for bearing with me. I'm almost done. I know I'm spewing a mouthful at you right now, but I wanted to move briefly into our CEQA environmental review process. So as the Planning Commission is likely aware, this general plan is considered a project under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. As such, we prepared what we call a program level EIR. When you have a discrete development project, if you got a high-rise apartment building and the EIR was prepared, that's usually what we call a project level EIR. You've got site plans, you know where the driveways are going to be, you're looking at a specific project. We do this for the general plan at what we call the program level. So it's trying to understand how build out and full implementation over 20 years of your general plan would potentially have adverse effects on the environment. One thing I would like to mention, if you've ever had the joy of reviewing and reading an EIR in detail, you'll know that it contains a series of mitigation measures. So if a project or a plan might have a significant adverse impact on the environment, we assign or craft a mitigation measure, an effort to reduce that impact down below our thresholds to make it less than significant. Well, since we're dealing with your general plan, we really don't like the idea of the EIR putting additional requirements on your policy document itself. So we use the same team of planners to write both the general plan and the EIR. And so if we were discovering that implementing your general plan may have an environmental impact that needs mitigation, we built that mitigation right into the general plan. It lives in there in the form of a policy or an action item. So what you have before you today is what we call a self-mitigating general plan. So it's going to be a useful tool for staff and the Planning Commission. You're not looking at multiple documents to figure out what your environmental mitigations are. They all reside within your general plan. So we've gone through the required steps and processes under CEQA. We started with an initial study and notice of preparation. We received 6 public comments or agency comments on that document when it went out for public review. We addressed all of those comments in the preparation of the draft EIR, which is really the meat and potatoes of the analysis. That's the bulk of the work and effort to analyze the implications. For better or worse, I'm going to chalk it up to us writing a fabulously excellent draft EIR. We got 0 comments on the adequacy of the analysis within our 45-day comment period. That's a first for me professionally. So it was great. We'll take the win. Like I said, we're going to chalk it up to just doing a really good job on our part, getting this thing written. So what we then did is prepared the final EIR. That includes all comments received and written responses to comments. In this case, that was a very short set of chapters. And the final EIR incorporates the draft by reference. So when you certify the final EIR, you're including all the analysis of the draft. And these are accompanied by our required CEQA findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations. All the exciting stuff that goes into a plan. All right, in terms of public review, the draft general plan was made available to the public in August of 2020. We formally started a 45-day public review and comment period on both the draft general plan and the draft EIR that ran from November 2nd through December 17th. We got some later comments that we've included in your staff report in your package. You know, we don't want to, just because the formal 45-day period closed, we don't want to exclude anybody in terms of opportunities to submit comments. So I believe those have all made it into your packet. During the review of the draft general plan, we received comments from Allison McDonald, Barbara Joan Navarro, and John Dahl, which his comments included a compilation from a number of community members. They had a chance to introduce their comments during our December 14th virtual open house workshop. I believe all those commenters were present on that call. They all spoke. We have summary notes from that public community workshop attached to your staff report. And again, those include the comments that were from a coalition of community members. All right, thanks for bearing with me. So in terms of our staff recommendation, just reiterating, the staff recommendation is that you conduct this public hearing and adopt Resolution 21-001, recommending that the City Council certify the final EIR and adopt the Milpitas 2040 General Plan. And where we go from here is we will take the Planning Commission's recommendations and any resolutions. We'll take that forward to the City Council. They will make a determination in terms of, do we make any changes to the general plan document? And they will ultimately vote to approve or potentially deny the general plan and the final EIR. And we are cautiously optimistic that we're about a month out from that hearing. We're hoping to get that on either a late February or early March calendar. So thank you for bearing with me. That concludes my formal presentation. I will end this and stop sharing my screen. And I will be happy to entertain any and all questions and discussions. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. I admire your ability to in number of breaths to cover all these subjects. We appreciate your excellent presentation. And since this is an item that is it's a general plan update, we don't have a applicant presentation. At this point in time, I would probably open the floor up to the commission to inquire into any questions that you may have.
And Chair Tao, may I interject briefly?
Please.
I just wanted to note that we did receive some comments from the Santa Clara County Health Department, and those comments are also attached. I believe it's attachment D. I apologize, we didn't mention that. That actually came in this afternoon. And we do have Teddy, who is with the Santa Clara County Health Department. He is one of the attendees for the presentation. So if you have any questions, he's certainly here as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And so, commissioners, do you have any questions? I don't see any raised hands here. If not, if you can raise your hand on screen, or speak up. I don't see any comments. Okay, the chair has a few comments to both the consultant as well as to the attending staff this evening as well. So, Mr. Ritchie, on the general plan, on the proposed general plan map here, it also has taken into the hillside ordinance requirement, into the consideration for the hillside portion of the city. Correct?
That is correct. It's consistent with the recently passed voter initiatives, and we made no changes to the hillside area. So,
okay.
Yeah.
The hillside ordinance has a sunset date. Is that consistent with the general plan application date that's been proposed?
It is, but legally they're going to run on parallel tracks. So the general plan is supportive of the current ordinances and regulations and voter initiatives that were passed with respect to protection of the hillsides. Those ordinances and initiatives will have their own sunset date, but the general plan, they're consistent with the general plan now, and the general plan holds different legal weight in terms of the sunset dates of those separate ordinances.
If we were to look at a hierarchy, is there one that's sort of supersedes the other? If you can clarify that.
I would put the general plan first, but you get to some nuances. I'm not sure I'd put them in a linear hierarchy. If you find yourself with the general plan still intact how it is now and the ordinances have sunsetted, just because the ordinances have sunsetted does not mean that the general plan reverts to some other course of action. So those protections will remain in place in the general plan. So a hypothetical would be if someone came in now and applied for a general plan amendment to change the hillside to high density residential or what have you, they would obviously, you could theoretically amend your general plan, but then you would bump up against conflicting with those ordinances. If and when those ordinances expire or sunset and are not otherwise renewed, you would still be prohibited from doing such development based on your general plan, but you would now have a mechanism to amend or change your general plan. Again, and that's only under the assumption that those voter approved initiatives, which require that these things go to ballot, that those were no longer legally enforceable.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair Tao. So my questions to actually both Mr. Ritchie and Planning Manager Garner is, so, we, as you noted, we received some, late comments, today, right, from like the health department. So, just maybe just for the, public's, awareness. And so, how would we take those comments that we received today and incorporate those into the general plan? I mean, I just want to understand how that would be done, because, tonight, it's being asked to, adopt, the, general plan, but how, with these late type of comments and also we still have the public forum as well too, coming up, and there may be some other, comments that, need to be considered. And I realize that this is going through the Planning Commission first, right? And then it's going to go into, to the City Council, to do any, revision. So is that what the general idea is, for it to be planned tonight? For the Planning Commission to approve, and then if there's any additional comments that we get like late breaking and, also maybe from tonight, that it will go to the City Council. So anyway, that's my question. I'm sorry if it's a little bit more long-winded. That's okay.
I can speak to it a little bit. Ben, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. What we're going to do, and this also is alluding to the comments that we received from VTA as well. Those were just submitted to us, I believe, yesterday. So really or yesterday or the day before, I apologize. So our intention is that because we didn't really have a lot of time to look at these comments either, that first we wanted to make sure that they were available. They're they're in the public record. So, the public has a chance to take a look at them. The commission, please feel free to look over those comments. And if you have questions, or if you would like to make a recommendation based on those comments that you would like to forward to the City Council for their consideration, please do so. And then what we will be doing is, if you have any questions about the comments that were submitted tonight, or if the public has any comments about the comments that were submitted, we're happy to answer any questions that we're able to tonight. And then we will have a chance to fully vet those before we go to the City Council, which at this point we're planning on February 23rd. It'll be a special meeting that we will, again, bring those comments to the City Council. It'll be, again, attached so they can review them. And what we will do is integrate any of the recommendations from the City Council or their decisions if they want to make changes to any of the policy goals or the implementation, any component of the general plan, then we will do that, and the final plan will reflect that. Ben, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're completely right. And the one thing I would add to that is, I did have a chance to read through, VTA comments came in late. I think we got a copy Monday or Tuesday. They came in very late. I'll use them as an example. They were very complimentary comments. There was nothing in there along the lines of, man, you missed the mark, or we disagree with this. I would classify them as highly supportive of the plan that we wrote. Some very minor suggested wordsmithing that I don't think changes the intent or the effectiveness of any of the policies that are currently in your general plan. And I'll also note with the VTA example, We reached out to them very early on in the process of drafting the circulation element. We had no fewer than 4 staff members provide lengthy comments on the first flush draft that we made. We incorporated the vast majority of those comments. So we worked very closely collaboratively with them in developing this. And, you know, they came back through, took one more pass at it, and most of their comments, you'll find they say, we commend you for this, we support, we agree. So based on my professional recommendation of the comments that have come in, I'm not advising that you make any additional changes to the general plan as presented to you. That's certainly in your purview to do, but based on what I've seen, they didn't point out a notable flaw or, you know, encourage us to go in a dramatically different direction. And the majority of the comments are very complimentary and supportive of what we've put together. So, you know, I think, I don't want to speak for staff, but your consultant recommendation is I feel we're in a pretty good place. But again, it's completely at your discretion if you choose to review them in greater detail and recommend that the city council take certain action. And we'll of course forward these along to the city council for their consideration. But I certainly don't think you have to go through them point by point.
And if I may, just very briefly, we did, you know, there were a number of comments that were submitted that there may have been questions that were posed by the community, that there may be some lack of understanding about the, you know, what the general plan has purview over versus what, let's say, the zoning ordinance may have purview over, or a specific plan that may actually be, you know, the area where we create development standards and very detailed regulations for how development can occur in those areas. So I, you know, just want to make that point of clarification that when we see comments or questions related to building heights, specific types of uses, those kinds of questions or observations that did come up in the comments, that really that's outside the purview of the general plan, that those are most likely a lot of those development standards are what we handle in our zoning ordinance. We are going to be embarking on an update to our zoning ordinance. We're hoping later this year. Obviously, with the new land use, or with the new land use map, we have new land use designations and definitions that our zoning ordinance is going to need to address. So we have really a mandate to make sure that the ordinance reflects these new changes once the general plan is adopted. And we will go into detail about what's allowed in those zoning districts and all of the development standards that we use and that we bring forward to the Planning Commission and Council when we have a development project.
I have another question too, just in terms of, you know, like the comments, you know, we have here. Let's say, you know, we go with, you know, what you have, you know, let's say, you know, tonight. So I think from what I'm hearing is we'll have a continued opportunity until, you know, we present it to the city council, or, you know, until the planning department presents it to the city council. And let's say, you know, down the line, you know, maybe after the, you know, city council meeting, and then there's something that was missed. It sounds like as well that there's an amendment process as well to go through that. You know, I know, Mr. Ritchie, you had actually described, you know, a portion of it as well too, but maybe just can you go in a little bit more detail on how the amendment process would handle, like say if something was missed and we overlook something, and what it would take to go through to make a change to the general, you know, the final general plan.
Sure, I'd be happy to elaborate on that. So one point of clarification is that, you know, assuming the Planning Commission is prepared to vote and take action on the resolution before you this evening, it would then forward on to the City Council. So this would be the Planning Commission's essentially last bite at the apple on the general plan that will go forward for adoption. So if during your discussion this evening, if there are specific edits that you want to see made, a tangible change, I would like this policy changed from A to B. What I might suggest, and the city attorney can step in at any time, but I might suggest you would make a motion to adopt the general plan inclusive of the following changes and direct that these changes be made. And then we would pass that along to the City Council. Here's the Planning Commission's recommendation. So that's kind of the first part of my answer to your question. In terms of subsequent amendments to the general plan, yes, under state law, you are allowed 4 amendments per year. These can be initiated either by private parties. So a developer, property owner comes in and says, hey, I'm designated commercial. I'd like to change it to high density residential. Here's my application for a general plan amendment. You would consider that as part of the application, and you may or you may not make that change or vote to approve that. The other category of changes would be city initiated changes. And so if you go forward and you realize, man, I wish we had less policy talking about complete streets and we had more policy talking about bike lanes, you could then go in and make your own text changes to the general plan based on a city initiated general plan amendment. And again, you're allocated or allowed up to 4 of those per year. So while this is a 20-year document, if you get 3 years down the road and you're like, man, I wish we did this, or COVID's working out different than we thought, there's absolutely steps and procedures in place for you to refine and fine tune this. They can be as minor as adding 1 policy. They can be as major as putting in 3 more elements and overhauling the rest. So you have a tremendous amount of discretion. And if the city so chose, you could do a comprehensive update all over again next year. I don't recommend that, but that's legally, that's within your authority to do. I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank you. Chair Tal, that's all the questions I had. I just wanted to bring these, items up, just so, anyone that is watching and the public is aware of, any of the processes that
Absolutely
would have to go through to make any type of changes. Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioners, other comments before Chair's questions? Okay, seeing none. Question for Director Andrade. As we're kind of still in the brave new world of COVID, and I don't know how long this is going to last, are we going to, does the general plan update provide enough framework from economic development standpoint for the city to move forward in kind of, I guess, working with what we don't know? And obviously it's impacted, but a lot of unknowns still kind of exist within the framework.
Thank you, Chair Tal. Alex Andrade, Economic Development Director. My pleasure to be here before you. Congratulations, Vice Chair Chuan, and great job, Vice Chair Alcorn. To your point about today's economy, there is no parallel to the collapse that our economy has experienced, and that's pretty true across the US and beyond. Our unemployment rate hit a high of 13% in April of 2020. Thankfully, things are trending in the right direction. We're at about 6% unemployment rate right now, so we do need to assist our unemployed and underemployed. And I think the pandemic is so ingrained in who we are and what we're doing today, it makes sense to talk about that today. I would say that it's important to note that this is a long-term planning document and a blueprint for development, as Ben was indicating earlier. Perhaps the most important document that cities have an opportunity to work with. To your question, however, when I first started 2 years ago, one of my first bodies of work was to collaborate with both Ned and Jessica on the economic development element. You heard earlier that the economic development element is not one of the 7 requirements by the state. I have always been both surprised and intrigued and thankful that we have included the economic development element within a general plan. I will say a lot of cities don't do that. I'm very thankful that we're thinking holistically and looking at the future as it relates to economic development, job growth. So the answer is yes. I do feel strongly that we're very well covered as it relates to future economic vitality, future growth opportunities in the right places, very strategically placed in terms of new future intensification and densification. So I feel very good about the plan today. Thank you, Chair Tal.
Director Andrade, we appreciate your response and comment. Next question here is for a traffic engineer, Mr. Chan. So, with the new ways of the vehicle mileage traveled and and given the sort of the changing work world that we have, there's a traffic pattern changes, and also the new general plan here provides you with sufficient flexibility in where we may be able to shift traffic. I should say the traffic use pattern in one area to another, so that we're able to kind of be flexible enough in adapting to a world that we don't know exactly what's going to look like just yet. Maybe.
The general plan traffic analysis is basically focused on VMT analysis, but as part of the analysis, they still continue to utilize the intersection LOS level of service analysis. So we do kind of generally know where the intensification of traffic is going to be. When that intensification happens, land use, then we're better prepared to mitigate it when that condition arises. I hope that answers your questions.
Okay, my goal is just making sure that as we kind of move forward, we do have enough flexibility, provided within the document itself to staff and in terms of interpretations, and then to allow us, to sort of the viability to grow and to I guess change lanes and shift as we move forward with this the post-COVID scenario as we go forward. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chan. We appreciate your response.
And Chair, may I interject briefly?
Please.
Just to add on, just to give you a little bit of context as well with respect to VMT, staff has been working with a consultant. We're actually in the process of developing a VMT policy that we will be bringing to the Planning Commission and to the City Council very soon. So we're working very closely with Steve Chan and the engineering department so that we're, ground truthing some of the, the thresholds that we're working on and some of the many technical aspects of the VMT policy. So you will be seeing more on that, and lots of change, I think, has been alluded to in his presentation.
And on that particular point there, and maybe if we have a lighter calendar session in the future, then we may want to be able to do a more of an instructive moment or item for the commission in terms of how this particular policy is going to be. I guess what is it and how it's going to be implemented within the context and moving forward.
Duly noted, and we will definitely be bringing it back to the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the staff support on that. And also on the question of water resource, question I guess for staff, I guess Director Thomas and the manager, planning manager Gardner, the water resource, we have grown regionally quite a bit and locally a lot, and we don't have a whole lot of how should I say additional water dams or other water projects that which increases our water output, and a lot of the water resources is coming from the groundwater siphoning, and it's a concern. Mexico City is a good example of excessive siphoning without conservations in other areas. Do we have sufficient? I just want to make sure this general plan here, we have sufficient water resources, sort of in comparison to the growth at which we're kind of anticipating. With.
Yeah, actually, that will be a good question for Ben to answer from abilities element of the plan. So.
Yeah, and I can take a first pass at that. So water supply and water availability is obviously of critical importance, and we've approached this through many lenses at many angles. So for example, we have a number of policies throughout the general plan that are promoting conservation and reduction of water use. That's one way to approach it. We have a number of policies that require that new projects demonstrate that adequate water supplies are available before the city's allowed to grant entitlements. And so that makes sure that all existing users' supplies continue to be met and that there's adequate supply for any additional development. So you have policy protection in place that makes sure that you don't outgrow or outpace your water demands you don't grow out of what's available in terms of your supply. And then the last thing I'll mention is that I did a very specific deep dive analysis of what full build out. And by that, we look 20 years down. If these parcels throughout the city all develop at their highest level of allowed development, you get to a certain amount of growth in terms of population, commercial, office, industrial. We analyzed the water demands of that future build out year and compared it to available and projected water supplies that aren't based on speculation, that they're based on, procured and secured sources. And the water supply analysis demonstrated that you do have adequate supplies at your 2040 build out year to accommodate the general plan. So we made sure you had enough. We tell you to conserve, and we don't let you build until you can prove that you have enough. So we've approached it through 3 lenses.
Thank you.
If I could add another dimension to that. So in addition to sort of the practical realities of water supply and demand, this is a really good example of how the plan and other master plans with the city are required to be consistent. So for example, the city is currently updating its water master plan. And similar to the way that we did an economic development strategy, and we have a water master plan, and we have the specific plans, we have the Parks and Rec master plan, Trails master plan, all of those master plans within the city are required to be consistent with the general plan. So as I said at the beginning, this general plan is one of the most important policy documents in the city, not just and a lot of times we associate it with land use, but it has so many other dimensions, as you have heard tonight. And in addition to the internal consistency among the various elements of the general plan, it also guides and directs and all of the other master plans under it, if you will. It's kind of like the mother hen and the little chicks. All the little chicks have to be consistent with the mother hen, which is the general plan.
Thank you, Director Thomas. And Chair's next question here is for the fire department. With the increased sort of wildland fire potentials, does the general plan provide the adequate enough of roadmap in terms of the city's fire operations to respond to it? Whether it's Mr. Zamora or Mr. Garcia that may respond to this.
So can you kind of repeat your question, Chair? Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Commission. I apologize. It's been a while. But if you can kind of repeat your question one more time, sir. No
problem. So Chief Zamora, so under the guidance here, and we seem to have a more frequency of the wildland fires, and especially in the hills above us, so that this particular general plan here does provide the adequate roadmap for the fire department, and also it's affiliated other agencies and the local response teams to properly, I guess, handle the fire suppression requirement as it may be needed.
Yeah, so one of the major things that's happening in the state of California, obviously because of the multiple fires that we've had, is vegetation management. And so we're taking a very aggressive approach to that to ensure that we do maintain that, so we reduce that opportunity for catching more fires. Right now, I mean, we have pretty good staffing. We also work together with our volunteer fire department up on the valley, on the hillside, and so together, and also with CAL FIRE in the areas that are outside of the city limits, we all kind of work together as a mutual aid agreement. But I think the biggest and most important thing that we can do as a city ensure the higher level of vegetation management. Now that this has been happening, we are very aggressive, and we're looking at every property, private, public, right away or otherwise, so that we are keeping our city safe. So that's kind of the primary thing that we need to do as a fire department, is ensure that everything is cut down to the ground, and then making sure dead trees are taken away, In fact, that was out on the field about a week ago, because we're having to deal with weed abatement coming up next month with some of the parcels that are going to be cut by the county on behalf of the city. So hopefully that will kind of address some of the issues or the questions you may have. And that's kind of the end of my report.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your comments. Commissions, any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, this has been a public hearing item, and this point in time, the chair would like to welcome the public provide their comments for the item at hand. So, Ms. Medina, if you'll queue up the first public speaker.
Yes, Chair. We have Allison McDonald.
Ms. McDonald, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to start by thanking staff and consultants for the amazing document that we have that's going to guide us to a better future for Milpitas. My comments, initial comments, written comments were included in your packet, but I would like to take this opportunity to outline my 5 concerns, which are mainly inconsistencies in the plan that I think should be rectified. So under climate action and then electricity and natural gas sections, it's the electricity and natural gas section policy UCS 6-1 suggests that the city work cooperatively with utility providers to ensure the provision of adequate natural gas services and facilities to serve the needs of future residents and businesses. But I think that policy needs to be made consistent with goal CON-1, which says they should ensure the future for the city of Milpitas by promoting a carbon-free energy future. So please rectify that inconsistency and include policies that would support banning natural gas in new construction like other cities are doing. With regard to schools, libraries, and other facilities, actually, while they talk about, they mention higher education and adult education, they don't call out coordination or cooperation with the city of, San Jose City College, Milpitas Extension, or the College District, and that should be rectified. Regarding hazardous materials, SA 5-5 talks about minimizing use of toxic cleaning supplies and products in civic facilities and minimizing use of chemicals for landscaping and outdoor operations. And I think there should also be guidance around the use and storage of chemicals for public pools. And under social services and emergency services section, CHW 3-4 states that emotional health and well-being are an integral component to personal and community health and should be supported through city actions and policies. However, there is no reference to it in the emergency services section. Other communities are establishing behavioral health response units to address mental health crises and to be part of, they should be part of our emergency response options. We need to have something that suggests the
McDonald, I think we have reached the time allocated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I can ask the IT support if we can provide us with the timers for the benefit of the speakers and the commission as well, we appreciate it. So Ms. Medina, next speaker, please. IT, I think the timer should be reflecting 2 minutes, and the chair will have a discretion to provide the speaker additional time if pertinent. Thank you. Thank you very much for the change to 2 minutes. And Ms. Medina, the next speaker in the queue, please.
The next speaker we have is Mr. John Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. If you will provide your comments. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Clear and loud.
Very good. Well, let me start by saying that there are others in our group who contributed to the input that we submitted in mid-December who are attending this meeting, and they may want to add to the comments that I'm about to make. I have 2 general comments and areas of concern. First, we obviously worked very hard to identify specific concerns and consolidate those into the document we contributed. I think there were a total of about 50 comments all told. And we do want to understand when and how those will be addressed in writing. And if it's the case that particular ones would be addressed in other specific plans, if that's the response, then we would like to know which specific plan, would apply to each of those questions where that's the case. And secondly, it appeared that the area around Jacqueline and from the detail maps, that the area around the intersection of Jacqueline and Hillview, or the Gulfland area, were going to be among the areas that would be designated for different purposes, and we wonder if you can elaborate on that, what the intention is there, and what neighborhood impact you might anticipate. Then I know your time is limited, but maybe you can spend a little more time drilling into that. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Ms. Garner, would the staff like to provide a response at this point?
Sure, thank you, Chief Chow. Just briefly, without going line by line, there were numerous comments submitted, and again, as I said in the presentation, that there were a number of comments and questions that were submitted by the applicant, or sorry, by the community. And generally speaking, we have two specific plans in the city to respond to Mr. Dahl. We have the former transit area specific plan, which is now being called Milpitas Metro. That area is designated on the map. It's clear to see what that is. And if the residents have any questions in particular to that specific plan, I'm happy to answer those offline. It's not pertinent again to the general plan itself, because the general plan has essentially carved out those specific plan areas, which will be regulated through the specific plan process. The other specific plan area that we have is the former Midtown specific plan, which it has been rechristened as the Main Street Gateway specific plan, or Gateway Main Street, one of the two. And again, while we have not yet initiated that process, we will be updating that specific plan later on this year. And again, any development standards, regulations, all of the things that go into how a development comes about will be addressed in that plan. So I'm happy to speak with the residents offline if they have specific questions about those. With respect to the question regarding the areas around Jacqueline, if I'm not mistaken, and we can bring that map back up, that area is designated for general commercial, neighborhood commercial, if I'm not mistaken. And I apologize, I need to open it up and look at it on my map. What we are proposing is a modest increase in floor area ratio. And I just want to stress again that when we talk about a land use, that is just a land use designation. That does not supersede the planning process. It doesn't supersede the development standards that we have in place that would be regulating building height, setbacks, parking, circulation. All of those issues are addressed in our zoning ordinance. So the idea here is that over time, in the next 20 years, perceptively, as we move through, the coming 2 decades, those areas may undergo redevelopment. We don't know. We have no idea. Gulfland may stay Gulfland forever, and that's fine. That's an allowed land use over there. Should the property owners in that area choose to redevelop, if they want to do something different, what we want to do is create land use standards that are reflective of current development trends. And what we know when we work with developers that come in with commercial types of projects is that there may be an opportunity to increase the floor area ratio so that they can get a better product in, so that they can respond to the fluctuations in the market. So again, it does not supersede the planning process. All of those projects will still be subject to a public hearing, go before the Planning Commission, go before the City Council, and that is all open to the public. So just want to stress that these are very general, broad descriptions that we will, again, as we bring in new development, it'll be subject to the scrutiny of the zoning ordinance and or specific plan that governs it.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. We appreciate your comment. And Ms. Medina, queuing the next speaker, please.
The next person we have in the queue is Mr. William Corby.
Mr. Corby, please.
Hi, I'm Bill Corby. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just going to follow up on John's comment. I apologize, I was late to this meeting. I was tied up with something. I've been working with our team here in the Milpitas group, and we've been monitoring what's going on in the neighborhood and looking out for the quality of life in the neighborhood, and contributed strongly to the general plan regarding height limitations of new construction in the area of the low density residential neighborhood. And I've been working with that after having some discussions with the mayor directly, who seems to be supportive of that kind of an issue. Assuming that gets put into the general plan, I just wanted to make sure that that is being considered by the Planning Commission before, vetting, in other words, vetting their proposals for an acceptable level of height limitation. For example, no high-rise buildings in the middle of the residential low-density neighborhood. I didn't hear the previous discussion that may have already been discussed, but I just wanted to bring that topic up so we don't forget about it and it's a matter of record. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Corby. And I think this is an item that Ms. Garner has addressed in her previous comments. So, Ms. Garner, if you can just go ahead specifically in short fashion address that.
Thank you, Chair. I think there seems to be a perpetual amount of confusion about what the general plan does and does not regulate. Let me repeat: the general plan does not regulate height. That is within the zoning ordinance. That is not in the purview of the general plan. So again, as I talked about earlier, what city staff will be doing is updating the city's zoning ordinance. We're going to be doing that later on in 2021. And when we get into that process, we will be looking at specific heights relative to zoning districts throughout the city. So I would just remind the public that the general plan does not govern that type of development standard.
Thank you, Ms. Garner, for the clarification. And
may I just add one item to that? Thank you, Jessica. Mayor Tran has recently brought this issue of building heights up with the council and staff. And so it's something that we will look at, as Jessica mentioned, as Planning Manager Garner mentioned, as part of our zoning ordinance update, but it definitely is on our work program and will be consistent with the policy foundation provided in the general plan.
Thank you, Director Thomas. We appreciate your comment. And Ms. Medina, please queue up the next speaker.
Yes, we have Miss Barbara Jo Navarro.
Ms. Navarro, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I just wanted to clarify, I think some of us who have read the general plan, and we do appreciate it. It's a great document. We put together our comments, which you have in your packet. We're just wondering, when we diligently wrote these comments, we were just hopeful that we would get written comments back via email based on what we provided, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. And that's all we were asking for, is even though Ms. Gardner has responded verbally to some of our comments, we were hopeful that we would get written comments back. Is that not the way things would be done? We were confused about that. And that's what Mr. Dole was kind of elating to, is that we put together a nice document and we were hopeful that we would get a nice response to our document. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro, and either Director Thomas or Ms. Planning Manager Garner would respond to that.
Either Jessica or Ben can probably respond to that as well. We've sent all of the comments to our consultant, and they've all been considered. And we can certainly attempt to do a written response, but we have responded. I believe we have responded within the document itself. I don't know if they are part of the record. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, either Jessica or Ben.
Just to briefly elaborate, if there was confusion about written comments, the city by state law is obligated to respond to any comments that are submitted for the environmental impact report. That is when we thoroughly document the question, we thoroughly document a response, and that is included in the public record. So I apologize if the residents have been expecting written comments from us. We've been very busy trying to prepare the plan itself and to make sure that it's ready to go, and have had numerous opportunities for public comment. So I just want to stress that we have heard your comments. We appreciate your concern about certain areas, and I'm happy to clarify or help you understand if there are some questions. And we can set up some time before it goes to the city council, and I'd be happy to answer some of those questions for you. As for written comments, I think that would be a significant amount of time for us to go through that. And some of the responses that were submitted to us were really just comments. So, I can certainly let you know that duly noted, we've heard them. Don't necessarily have an opinion on them, because we will be forwarding them first to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council if they would like to make any changes to what we've been proposing.
Thank you, Ms. Garner. And next, Ms. Medina, would you please queue up the next speaker, please?
Hi, Chair. We don't have any community members in the queue for public comment.
Thank you very much. And I'll revert back to the Planning Commission and commissions. Any questions after the public hearing portion, and any comments?
I see you, Chair. If we could just make a motion to close the public hearing.
Absolutely. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Second? Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Second, and all in favor? If we can just note aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. De Los Angeles. Appreciate it. And Commission, no questions? Okay. Then if we can have a motion.
Chair, I have a question.
Please.
Just some things just to kind of consider here. This is more for the planning staff. So I realize the planning department, and the overall the community has really worked hard on this document, and it's kind of coming up to a time where it's finally going to be released and all that. I just wanted to know if so my question earlier was regarding the all the comments that came in, especially particularly from VTA, also the health department, and even some of the residents, right? And I mean, it seems like that we have this, general plan here, and it's almost being asked to, finalize, hey, let's finalize it, and we'll take that. But I want to hear from my fellow commissioners as well, too, right? Just want to get understanding, like, I mean, our next meeting is, scheduled for, February 10th, and I'm just wondering, given that we received some of these comments, somewhat late. And I want to hear from the planning department as well too. Like, if let's say if some of the actions that were proposed to do today, if it got moved to make a final decision on for the next meeting, what would would there be any, consequences on doing that? Because I mean, I think we're coming down to the wire, and for all this hard work, and I just want to make sure, things are done right. And then, any comments that we, receive, from these different departments, if if those can be taken into consideration, and then, potentially in the next meeting, have a, just an update around that, and then do a vote around that. So I wanted to just open that. I just want to, verbalize this and, propose that, I'm not making a motion. I'm just, asking a question.
Sure.
It's a very good question. I think one way of looking at it is there are the legal requirements, and then there is the requirements of good customer service that we like to provide to our residents. I think it's the kind of the hallmark of City Hall in Milpitas. So as Jessica mentioned, I'll start with the environmental impact report. So when there are formal comments made on the environmental impact report, and there are formal guidelines and formal comment periods, and we follow all of that to the T. That's all done in a certain fashion. As we looked over the comments and the questions that were received and discussed them with the consultant, it became apparent to us that many of the comments received were, pertain to the general plan document itself. And as the consultant noted in his presentation, most of the comments that were received on the general plan were not of a nature that we've totally missed something, or we followed the wrong procedure, or we didn't meet a certain threshold. They were more along the lines of style or very specific issues, or even word changes that needed to be made. A lot of the comments that came in from the health department today were of that nature. Some of the comments from VTA, Valley Transportation, were also of that nature, and they can be addressed in the plan, or they can be mentioned in the report that goes to the council. Of these are some last minute comments that were received after the official comment period, but if they're substantive enough, we would note them and bring those to the council's attention. And I believe many of the comments that have come from the community, obviously we want to respond to those, and I can work with Jessica, and we can provide a written response if they're looking for that. Last thing I'll mention, then if Jessica or Ben have anything to add, I think some of the issues that one of the residents, Allison McDonald, brought up are interesting, and we should look at those and bring those to the attention of the council. Cooperation with City College, it may, for example, may have just been something that we missed, but if it's something that needs to be included in the plan, then we would certainly want to do that. So I've noted it here, and I know she's provided written comments as well. Ben or Jessica, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that as far as how we have responded to these comments about the general plan that have come in.
If I may, Ned, I thought that was a good synopsis. A lot of the community comments that we received really were in the form of questions. So if we get a comment along the lines of, I think this is a wrong policy and this policy should be suggested instead, we pay very careful attention to those. But I very much appreciate the thoughtfulness and the organization that went into the community, the resident comments that were submitted, but most of them were kind of in a narrative form and a question form, rather than I disagree with this and assert that we should do this. So I didn't see a lot of policy issues, and a lot of them obviously focused around height and concerns over future projects. And I think that Jessica's done a very good job of explaining that. In terms of the VTA and the county health department comments, I'll be very candid with my assessment as I reviewed them. I found them very supportive of what we've done. The VTA in particular provided a very limited number of actual suggestions. There was just kind of a narrative like, we're supporting complete streets and access to transit. And they say, yes, that's great. We're running this type of program and this would work well with your efforts. So they were collaborative, supportive comments. Where they did make some targeted suggested language changes, they don't change the intent of the policy. We wrote it one way, which I think was quite clear. They suggested some slightly alternative language that I don't think changed the intent of the policy whatsoever. You know, you could have 3 authors write the same policy and have it read 3 different ways, but they just weren't, I don't want to be dismissive of them whatsoever, but they weren't requesting or suggesting substantive changes. And I looked at those and my interpretation was, I think this is thoroughly addressed. I could point 4 different policies where I think we've accomplished this suggestion, and adding additional words I don't think strengthen the general plan in any way. So we took a professional, open-minded look through them. And I'll be candid, I often get, you know, someone will submit a comment and be like, wow, that's a good point. We missed that, or that isn't it, that's inconsistent. And I really didn't see any of those with these comments. So, you know, we have a comfort level rather than going through point by point. You know, VTA's was an 8-page letter and I could have gone through point by point, but most of my responses would have been, I agree, so do you. You know, I think this is accomplished. We're saying the same thing here. So I just want to be clear that I don't believe that staff or the consultant team is being in any way dismissive of anything that we received. And I appreciated Ned's offer on behalf of staff to write written responses to the various comments we got. And I'm looking at Barbara Jo Navarro's letter right now that she submitted in writing. It's polite, it's well written, and it's basically a series of questions. And so I would be more than happy to assist staff with drafting responses to those. She was nice enough to provide it in a Word document. I think we could drop responses right in there. I've certainly thought through how we might respond to those. So I'd be more than happy to assist with providing written responses to the community.
And just briefly, if I may, I also, when we heard that there's a number of those comments, or at least a few of them, that came from the public meeting that we had back in December, I know there were a number of comments that were related to economic development and the current economic situation, which, you know, we all recognize as dire. And I appreciate those comments and the community's concerns about what are we going to do. So I did bring those comments over to our Economic Development Director, Alex Andrade. Alex is also present on this call. I know he did respond to the chair's question earlier. So I want to reassure the community and also the Planning Commission that we are not an echo chamber. We are hearing these comments. We're following through on them dutifully. We're bringing these issues to your attention and also to the City Council's attention. So if any changes need to be made, we are all certainly rallying around if we need to change a policy. But I certainly agree with what Ben and Ned have said that, you know, it has been busy getting things organized. We have a little bit of time before we go to the City Council, and we will take that time and get those responses.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
If I could just add, if staff or the consultant, provide additional responses, that would be included as part of the record, when it's presented to the City Council.
Thank you, Council. And this meeting here is recorded, and all the responses by staff, it's also considered a part of the form of the response, and we appreciate the time and the additional resources both the consultant as well as staff providing to the responses to the local residents. We appreciate that. With that said, commissioners, any additional questions?
Chair, I've had my hand up for a while. Can I say something?
Please.
This is in response to the discussion that we've been talking about. A lot of the actual comments that they made that would impact this general plan, if you listen to the public comment that was said, they said that they actually submitted it earlier and then they didn't get the response that they were expecting, or they just wanted to reiterate it. That was probably 90% of the actual comments that would affect the general plan. So if the staff read these comments, then they should have actually already been forwarded over to the consultant or reviewed at the very least, and taken into account while drafting the plan. And so so with these comments, I don't see an urgent need to push anything off to the next meeting or anything, because and like I said, and just to reiterate, if you listen to the public comments today, a lot of them said that, hey, I submitted comments and I wasn't expecting the response that I I didn't receive the response that I was expecting, which is totally something that we can go over. And Jessica and Ned have already said that if they would prefer written responses, then they would be more than happy to do that. And even Ben, our consultant, said that because we have probably the greatest planning staff in the Valley, the best planning staff in the Valley. Kudos to you guys. But I think that they just want to make sure that their comments that have already been submitted and reviewed have been reviewed. And so I think that I'm very comfortable with sending this over to the council. And maybe they want to take one more look, and they can just make sure that if there's anything that they want to add at the last second, that they can add that in and send it to the council for a review. But I just want to kind of ease everyone and say that most of the actual impactful, they're all impactful, but most of the public comment that would make it possible or possibly be influencing the general plan have already been submitted, and they just wanted to reiterate their comment.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Chair.
Alcorn. The planning director, please.
Yeah, if I may just comment really quickly on that. Thank you for your kind words, Commissioner Alcorn. We appreciate your support. I just want to reiterate that whenever we receive the comments, we almost immediately, probably within the next 5 or 10 minutes, send those over to Ben. He gets tired of hearing from us as we've been preparing for this meeting tonight, really all along the way. We've just been coordinating very, very closely. So again, want to assure everyone that your comments have all been read several times, and we've been discussed individually and at length with Ben. What I want to emphasize with that as preliminary is that at this point in the process, what we've been looking for is anything, as Ben mentioned, anything that would be just a glaring miss or something that would substantially alter some type of the analysis we've done or the policies that have been written. And as has been mentioned, a lot of the comments that came in are, we appreciate the comments. It's exactly the type of input that we need and that we look for, but it wasn't necessarily it wouldn't necessarily change the tenor or the structure of the plan. That's mainly what we were looking for at this point. And as we noted, some of the comments we found would actually be addressed through the zoning ordinance update, or they would be addressed through subsequent actions consistent with the general plan. And so they might not be addressed in the general plan now, but we definitely have those comments, and they will be addressed through some type of planning process that we undertake moving forward. And that's why, it's the general plan, as the name indicates, it's a general plan. And, so it doesn't get down into specific things like building heights, but this is where the structure of the plan is so helpful, because we have goals and policies and actions, and somewhere woven within one of those layers, or one or more of those layers and one or more of the elements, all of the questions and comments that we saw came in. We felt like it was encompassed within what we have already written, and the direction is given in the general plan to address that at some future point through a more specific planning process, usually through the zoning ordinance in many cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Thomas. And any other comments from commissioners? At this point, I'd like, yes, Vice Chair.
Yeah, just a question. It's just for our city attorney. I realize that there's certain language around what the when there's a motion to be made about adopting the resolution, but the fact that we had mentioned and that Director Thomas and Planning Manager Garner offered to provide written response to any of the comments there, would that have to be added into a motion or anything like that?
I mean, generally because this is a recommendation, basically we're taking the EIR and the general plan update as a recommendation to the city council. So I think as as staff and the consultant alluded to, they've considered the comments. If you feel that you want a specific recommendation along with the recommendation to the city council, you could always add that. But for purposes of the motion, yeah, you may want, if you want to direct staff, to include written responses, you're free to do so. If you want to be more specific and say, I want these comments with, I want to recommend to the city council that these specific comments be considered. For example, the comments from VTA or from the health department, you can also entertain that, but I'm not sure if I answered your question, if that's what you're looking for.
You did. I was just, asking that just if anything needed to be added to make a motion.
Okay, but I think by default, what we've discussed at this point and what I think staff has expressed is that they will be addressing the questions, responses will be provided, and those responses will be part of the record that is going to be presented to the council. So
that's what I was, if I may, that's what I was thinking could be part of the record, if anything, is that as we provide written responses, we will include that as part of the packet. Right now, we just have the comments as an attachment to your document tonight, and we can provide some written comments. And so maybe what I mean by that is your motion could be to make a recommendation to the council, and for the packet that's sent to the council to include the written responses to comments from staff. Would that work, Martin?
That works. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Commissions, any other additional comments or clarifications which you'd like to chief? Okay, seeing none.
I have one more quick comment.
Commissioner Alcorn.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I actually really enjoyed the presentation from our consultant, Ben. It's always pretty amazing when you get someone who seems like he is way too excited to be presenting to a planning commission at we're at now 9 p.m. And that is, trust me, that is not a slam or an insult or anything. It really makes the presentation more interactive and more engaging. And me personally, land use is extremely interesting to me. That's why I'm on this commission. And so I really enjoyed it. He made it even more enjoyable by being excited about it. And he seems to really take pride in his work, as does our planning manager, Jessica. I saw her the entire time. She was smiling so much. She was super bubbly. And like each new topic, she looked like she was super excited hearing it for the first time. I loved it. Hearing it for the first time in a good way. Like she was excited, like, I get to hear it. And it's really cool where I feel like people who in the community who are watching could also be extremely engaged as well. And so a fantastic job, not just on the presentation, but the content itself too. And I just wanted to say that it's just fantastic.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcorn. And Commissioner Albana.
Yeah, Commissioner Alcorn had really capped it off, because I wanted to really say, looking at it and with so much work put in it, especially with Mr. Ritchie here, doing the presentation had built more confidence. I mean, when I saw all of this, and with planning manager also, Jessica Garner, we have to, it made me so happy to see not just so much time that was put into it, it was the thoroughness. And I'm sure they've made it, through all the years. I think this is the most well-planned, reviewed, executed in paper of the general plan. And as I had seen I had some questions, but she answered it. Jessica had answered it, because we have to work out the ordinances in a separate manner, which is not part, correct, of the general plan. Built so much confidence to me, especially with the presentation of, sometimes I look at it, in paper, and thank you, Director Thomas, for even dropping it off my house. To read more and more and more this December and January, but I was hit with COVID and hospitalized, but I missed those weeks, and I was wanting to thoroughly read it for the rest of the holidays, but I couldn't. And again, you know, the confidence it brings in me and what everybody had put into this for our community, we should be proud of this and be also excited about it, as excited as they are. So thank you so much, staff and everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Vice Chair.
I also want to thank you, Chair. I also want to give compliments to the planning department. I know this document has been long ongoing, and it's finally coming down to the wire. And planning manager Gardner, I hope you're enjoying the prom.
Thank you. Thank you. I am.
Thank you. And as a final comment, that as a chair, and in my professional travels, I read through portions and snippets and the segments of general plan documents along with the preparation. Feel this particular effort here is probably superior than most. Could not. It's like you cannot say which child you prefer you like the most, but I would say this is a superior, much superior effort in some of these general plans I've read through. And it's like, okay, and this is a very thorough effort, and our congratulations to the both the consultant and the staff that leads through the process in doing the update. We know it's been sort of a long process, and thank you. And I think with the Director Thomas's response to the speaker's comments, and we'll look forward to a successful going forward with this document going on to the council. So without further comments, can I have a motion, please, from a commissioner, vice chair?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
To adopt resolution number 21-001, recommending that the City Council certify Milpitas to 2040 General Plan Final Environmental Impact Report, SCH number 202-007-0348, and adopt the Milpitas 2040 General Plan. And also, to add to the what Director Thomas had made a comment earlier about, submitting responses to some of the comments in a package. Am I saying that right, Director Thomas? Okay. That's my motion.
I'm gonna go ahead and second that.
Thank you. And with that, I will go ahead and do a call for vote. And Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Belong?
Aye.
Commissioner Alcorn?
Aye.
Vice Chair?
Aye.
Chair's aye as well. So it's a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much for everyone, and my special thanks to Mr. Ritchie and his fellow consultants for a well-prepared document to it. And also I'd like to thank all the department representatives from fire, economic development, and traffic, and for your kind time expended this evening in enlightening the Commission and the public with your comments. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chair Tao.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thank you for your vote tonight, and not to belabor the point, but we typically don't use the chat function in Zoom for comments, but I do want to acknowledge for the public record, there is a comment from Barbara J. Navarro expressing displeasure at the way in which we responded to not having written comments. And I believe that we've hashed that out and provided a solution. So we will provide written response. And I apologize. I believe that staff did not understand the expectation of those who submitted the written comments that they expected a written response, but we're more than happy to do that. And now that we're aware of that expectation, we definitely want to meet that. So as we said, and as was included in the motion tonight, we will work with our consultant diligently. I can't promise it within the next few days, but as soon as we can, and certainly within the next few weeks, even within the next week, we'll get something out, and hope that will allay some of those concerns and that displeasure over not having the written comments prepared tonight. And we apologize for that oversight. Thank you.
And Director Thomas, thank you. And we appreciate that the comment and the work product that which will be forthcoming and will be as a part of the inclusion into the moving forward. And thank you very much for everyone's efforts in this process. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next agenda item, a new business, and there are no items, on that. And so some legal needs to read through. And any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department head to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. And the next agenda item is adjournment. May I have a motion?
Motion to.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcorn. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Albana. And if I can just go ahead and do a voice vote on the motion. Aye.
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 Well, thank you very much. And the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Everybody.